Fáilte go dtí Tulloch an Mullion. Welcome to Millmount in Drogheda. Look at that for a view. Spectacular view from the top of the mound here, right up against the Martello Tower here, or the wall around it, on the top of the ancient mound that archaeologists reckon might be a prehistoric burial mound, as indicated or as suggested by local folklore, because this is supposed to be the burial place of Amergin Glungial, Amergin of the Bright Knee, who was the spiritual figurehead of the Milesians in Lebor Gabála in the Book of Invasions, when they came to take Ireland from the Tuatha De Danann. Having landed originally at Inverscania in the southwest, they put to sea again, and the De Dananns told them if they could land again that Ireland would be theirs. So they put to sea again, and a fierce storm was raised by the De Dananns, scattering the Milesian fleet, breaking the ships, killing some of the brothers. But they managed a successful landing at Inverculpa, which you might just be able to see beyond the Boyne Viaduct there. You can see out towards the sea there at the estuary. Amergin was the first to place his foot on the soil of Ireland, announcing, "Who but I knows the place where the sun sets? Who but I knows the ages of the moon? What land is better than this island of the setting sun?" And in doing so, he successfully claimed Ireland for the Milesians, who had come all the way from Spain. And they're called Milesians, Milesians, because they were the sons of the Spanish king Milesian, and that supposedly translates as soldier of Spain. One can easily see how in prehistory this was a very dominant position overlooking the Boyne Valley, on the highest of the peaks, offering a commanding view not just of the estuary out as far as the sea, but of the river as it winds its way through what we call today the town of Drogheda, and onwards westwards towards the great monuments of Brú na Bóinne, which are a few miles upstream. And so it's not difficult to see why this might have been an important strategic location for the placing of a significant burial mound to somebody who is described as a pseudo-historical personage, but who has occupied a sure and steady, heartfelt place in the hearts and minds of Irish people for generations and generations. According to the annals of the Four Masters, Amergin came in the Bronze Age, in around 1694 BC. And one wonders whether there wasn't something that happened at that time, an arrival of people from distant lands settling down in Ireland, and that perhaps those names of renown have been remembered by every generation since. Amergin and his brothers Eramón and Eberfin, who became the first joint kings of Ireland. Later they squabbled after a year, and Eramón became the first Milesian king of Ireland. And they chose for themselves as the place where they would reign from the hill of Tara. Now you can't see it from here, but it lies in the southwest in the direction of the setting winter solstice sun. On winter solstice the sun sets at Tara as viewed from Millmount, and Tara was where Queen Tea, Tea, chose to have the domain of the Milesians in Ireland with her husband Eramón, and that's where Tara allegedly gets its name according to the Dinchanachus. Chawr, the moor or the rampart or wall of Tea, Chawr, later being anglicised to Tara, T-A-R-A. And so the two sites are connected astronomically, and it's very interesting that Amergin, so you might be able to see the cement factory on the horizon there. Well, when you're at Tara, on summer solstice, if you're looking towards the northeast where the sun rises, which is on June 21st, you'll see the sun coming up roughly in line with that cement factory, and beyond that, of course, here in Drogheda at Millmount. And it's interesting that they should be aligned astronomically, given that Amergin said, what land is better than this island of the setting sun? The Boyne River, of course, which you can't see in places, but just there is just where that red car is emerging. That's the bridge known as St. Mary's Bridge. That is the most ancient bridge, or was. There was an old stone bridge there which was replaced in the 1980s by a concrete structure. But the bridge that was there was the bridge at the ford, which is where Drogheda gets its name from. Drogheda, meaning bridge at the ford, because the oldest of the fording points of the river was right there. That's where people crossed. And of course the Boyne was a boundary marker between territories, between the territory of Ulster and Leinster in ancient times, between the counties of Louth to the north and Meath to the south, up until around the 1970s or the 1980s, when the boundary was moved from the Boyne, and much of the south of Drogheda is now in County Louth. But when I was born in the 1970s, if you were north of the river, you were in Louth, and if you were here on the south side of the river, you were in County Meath. And also it splits the diocese. On the north bank of the river is the Diocese of Armagh, and there is the parish church of St. Peter's Parish Church on West Street. And if you're on the south side of the river, and that's still the case, you are in the Diocese of Meath, and the chief parish church of St. Mary's there, St. Mary's Church in James's Street, is the chief church of the diocese in Drogheda. And the two churches were actually built in the same epoch in the 1880s. So I have a very romantic vision of Millmount. A lot of people see it for the Martello Tower and the military history of it. Those buildings were part of a barracks, Richmond Fort, which was constructed by the English in the early 1800s. The Martello Tower was built in 1808. The town was a garrison town being defended by the English. A lot of people see that, and that's okay, but perhaps what they don't see is the older mythical history, because the mound itself is said to have been raised by the Normans in local history books. But in fact, there is much reason to believe that it was built much earlier than that, and the Normans merely fortified something that was already there, as they did in other places such as Nouth and Dorslania on the Hill of Slane. Fascinatingly, I'll just try and show you the Hill of Slane. Sorry about the wind noise if there is any. So the pyramid-shaped roof there is the roof of the Holy Family Church in Ballsgrove in Drogheda. But just to the left of that, on the far horizon, you'll see trees and a hill looking quite hazy and misty. That is the Hill of Slane. And at the equinox, at the time of the equinox, not exactly on the day, but a couple of days before spring equinox and a couple of days after autumn equinox, the sun sets into the Hill of Slane as viewed right here from Millmount. They have an equinox alignment. Patrick landed in the same place on the Boyne Estuary as Amergin had done centuries earlier. In fact, we're told Patrick came here in either 432 or 433 AED. Amergin had come 1700 BC, so 2100 years or 21 centuries previously. Amergin had landed. Who but I knows the place where the sun sets? And of course there are significant sunsets towards Tara at winter solstice, towards Slane at the equinoxes, and towards the Black Hill in Cullen on summer solstice. And it has been suggested by myself and Richard Moore and other scholars that black in a place name could be significant to the summer solstice, in that the darkening of the days is coming. And of course Doa, which is Doubt's name, means darkness, and the myth there strongly suggests a concern with the summer solstice. So anyway, this is Millmount, and translated as into Irish as Tulloch on Mullion, which literally means the mound of the mill. At one time, I think in the 17th or 18th century, and I could be mistaken about the year, that's my mistake if it is a mistake, there was a mill owned by a man called Delahoyd. So you can see the sign there, Tulloch on Mullion, Millmount. There was a there was a mill on the top of the mound, Delahoyd's Mill. So today, Drogheda is a modern, bustling, busy town. When I was young, there were 20,000 people living here. There are now at least 45,000 in the space of a few decades. It's growing all the time. It's a busy town, but full of history and full of mythology. And there's a train crossing the Boyne Viaduct. Boyne Viaduct was begun in 1849, just after the Great Famine, and completed in 1855, thus completing the Dublin to Belfast railway line. And you can see beyond that, the crane there is the port of Tomrose Point, Drogheda Port. And beyond that, you can see the dunes and the Irish Sea. Lovely day here. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this short video from the top of Millmount in Drogheda. I've a place that's very, very close to my heart. Oh, I should have said that poetic and mythical vision of mine is that we should keep alive always the romantic notion of something ancient, something spiritual, something mystical, something mythical, and that we shouldn't reduce all of these things and our old stories to mere fable, that they have a meaning, and myth is a form of history. Amergin to me is as real as anybody has ever been, and is in many respects still very much alive, keeping an eye over the ancient Glan na Boyne, the Boyne Valley, from here at Millmount in Drogheda.